All right, everyone. Yeah. So again, welcome to the Makery. This is our second workshop of the semester. So let's. So just for anyone who missed our first meeting, or we have weekly meetings alternating Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays being our workshop meetings, and Thursdays being our project meetings. And to log into any of the meetings, you just go to gtmakery.github.io/bluejeans, and that'll redirect you straight to our BlueJeans. If you have any workshops you want to let us know about, or you want to get on the mailing list, you can fill in the workshop interest form at gtmakery.github.io/mailing. And here are a couple of the potential workshops that we do every semester. So we've got our Arduino workshop, our Raspberry Pi. We do all kinds of circuits, wireless stuff, 3D printing and modeling, laser cutting, and anything else you can think of. And if you have any suggestions or something you'd like to learn about that's not in this list right here, feel free to drop it in the workshop interest form and let us know what you want to see. One of the projects that we've been working on long-term is a go-kart. So we have some decommissioned Lime scooters, and we're taking the motors from those and building a go-kart out of that. So as was mentioned on the first slide, and one of the other things, or the main piece of software we'll need today is Inkscape. So you can go to inkscape.org/release/inkscape-1.0.1. And I believe Jack has dropped that in the chat for us as well. So you can go ahead and see it there and get that installed on your computer. So I'm going to go ahead and get into working with Inkscape, and we'll go ahead and talk about everything that we want to get through. So Inkscape is what's called a vector graphics editor. It'll allow us to draw shapes that are kind of broken up into lines and fills, and then we can load that up into a laser cutting software and then go ahead and cut it. So being a Valentine's Day themed workshop, we want to make something kind of Valentine's themed. So one of the complex or more complex geometries that we're going to create is a heart. And that's not a shape that's just kind of built into Inkscape. So we're going to go through the process of making a heart of our own. So to make a heart, we're going to start with a square, and then we're going to basically add 2 bumps to it, and it'll look like a heart. So I'm going to go to the rectangle tool on the left, and we'll draw ourselves a rectangle. So the rectangle you draw will probably not have a stroke on it, so it'll just look like an empty, like just selection of a square. And in order for us to kind of make it visible, we'll go to the fill and stroke window here, and if you can't see it, we'll press Control-Shift-F, and that should pull up the fill and stroke box on the right. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat so that we can kind of address them as we go. So for our square, we're going to click the fill, and then we're going to go to the solid color, and we're going to fill it with red. So we'll drag that all the way to red, and we'll go to stroke. We'll do a solid color stroke, and we'll make the stroke green. So we'll drag up the green, and we'll drop the red and blue to 0. And for the stroke style, we'll change this dimension over to pixels, and we'll make it 1 pixel thick. And now if I grab the select tool and click off of it, we can see when I zoom in by pressing Control and scrolling in, there's a little bit of a green outline on our square. So for our square, we want to make it fixed dimension so that we can deal with it better. So we'll make it 1 inch in width and 1 inch in height. And we'll press enter, and that'll generate that. So now I'm going to go to the circle tool, and we'll draw our circle, which may or may not have just been drawn. Okay, so thanks. Give me 1 second. The circle tool not reset. Whoa. All right, yes, the circle tool should generate a circle like this. And we will set the width and height. So again, we're gonna go into inches, and we're gonna set, so this is radiuses, so we'll do 0.5 inches in X and Y radius. And that'll give us our square. And then the next thing we'll do is, if we look at the circle, we've got a square point here, a square point here, and a circular point here. So we'll click and drag that circular point to generate a half circle. And we'll make sure that it's a full half circle by changing the start to 0 and the end to just be 180. And now we'll grab our select tool, and it's already selected on the circle. We're gonna copy it, and we're gonna make, now we have 2 circles. Now what we'll do is we'll go to the Object tab, and we'll go to Transform, and that'll pull up the Transform menu on the right, top right here. We'll go to Rotate, and we're gonna rotate by 90 degrees. And so that's one piece rotated, and we're gonna apply that to the other piece. I went too far. All right, and so these are our pieces. So now we can kind of see what our heart would look like. So right, so if we put these pieces together, we get kind of a heart that's at an angle. So let's go through the process of actually putting these 3 pieces together. So we'll take each piece, we'll go to Path, and we'll click Object to Path. So we'll click each one and convert it to a path. Oop. I misclicked there. Object to Path. All right, so now I'm gonna zoom in a little so that we can see this better. So now when I drag this over, you guys can see to the left corner, it created a little cusp node corner, and it kind of snaps there. So we'll get that to show up again. All right, and we'll do the same thing with the other one. All right, so now we've got a heart, but it's got these lines in it, right? So we can get rid of the lines of each piece. So we'll take it and we'll set the stroke paint to none. And now we can see we have a full heart. So let's go ahead and take this. We'll go to Object, and we'll go to, where is it? Group. And that basically makes it one piece. And now I'm gonna copy it and make a duplicate off to the side. And we'll talk about our outline of a heart. So the 2 main shapes we're gonna have are a filled heart and an outline of a heart. So this one, we'll set the stroke to be solid green and the fill to be none, right? So now we've got these, the lines of the square in there, so we need to get rid of those. So we'll go to Object and we'll ungroup, and then we're gonna grab our node, or Edit Paths by Node tool, and that will allow us to take our square and cut those pieces out that we don't want. So if we select this corner of the square, come on, select, and we click Break Apart at this node, and then we select this bottom corner, and we select Break Apart at this node, then we can grab, okay, give me 1 second. I think I need to break these pieces apart a little first. All right. Now we'll go to our node select tool, and it should highlight better. And then we'll break it apart there. We'll go to this one, and we will break it apart there. And then we should be able to, come on, let me delete it. Hello? Okay, that's still connected. let's try that again. So we'll go to the top, we'll hit break path at selected nodes. Okay, I think it went through that time. Yeah, there it is. And we'll break the path at the selected node, and then I'll grab this piece and I'll delete it. And now when we deselect, we see that. And here, we'll say, or we'll grab these corners as well. So we'll grab this corner and we'll break it at that node. We'll grab this corner and we'll break it at that node. And then we'll grab just this piece and delete it and do the same thing here. So we grab that corner, break the path, grab this corner, break the path, and grab just a segment and delete it. And now we'll get our move tool or select tool and we'll drag it and make sure everything fits back up, and it'll snap everywhere we need. And if we zoom in, why is this not? Okay, we'll set the circle stroke to be 1 pixel first and see if that clears things up. All right. I'm not sure why it stopped connecting, but it should be fine. Let me see if I can move it and make it show up better. There we go. Okay, so we'll snap it to that, and that'll fix things up. So let's move this part out of the way, and we can group our pieces back together. So we'll go to Object, and we'll go to Group, and now we've got our pieces together. And now we're going to just figure out how to make some text. So if I click here, so if I click the text tool and then I click anywhere on the page, I can set my font size. So I'll set mine to be like 14, and then I'll just type in happy. Ooh, where'd it go? What? All right, let's try that again. All right, yeah. So we'll type in happy Valentine's Day, right? And then we can hit Control A to mess with the font. So the font menu might not open up fully the first time you click it. In that case, you'll just close it and open it again. So a font that we thought we liked was Lucida Calligraphy, and you can see that looks a little more artistic. So these are the 3 main elements that we're going to be putting together to make our Valentine's Day acrylic cutout. So let's go ahead and get our acrylic stuff ready. I'm going to grab all of this and just move it closer to the bottom because Inkscape is doing something weird on my computer and not snapping stuff to the right corners, but we'll worry about that in a sec. So the first thing we want to do is create another rectangle that's going to be the outline of our shape. So we'll just click and drag, and we can set the dimensions to be in inches, and we're going to go to the select tool so it selects it, and then we change our units to inches. And the width of the acrylic that we gave everyone is a little bit over 3 inches wide, so we'll just set the width to 3 so that we can trim to it, and the height is 3.5. So that we can kind of trim and make sure we have straight corners, we'll set the height to 3.25. So this is the outline of our shape. Now, if we look at the pieces of acrylic, or the final pieces we're going to have, and I'll just show this real quick. So we end up with a piece of acrylic and a 3D printed object. So we'll talk about those pieces later, but basically when they fit together, the acrylic actually sits in about 3/16 of an inch. So to give ourselves room for that, we need to make sure that we block off enough space at the bottom. So we'll grab the rectangle tool again, and we'll draw another rectangle, and we'll go to the select tool. We'll set its width to 3 inches, and its height to, we'll do 1/4. What is it doing? Where'd it go? Let me see if I can find it. Okay. So we'll grab it, right, and we'll set the height to, I think my numlock's a little stuck. There we go. And we'll set the height to 1/4. And we'll grab this rectangle that we just made, and we'll drag it and snap it to the bottom left of the rectangle. So this piece right here is going to be just a spacer, and we'll get rid of it later. So now another thing we need to consider when we're talking about laser cutting and drawings for things that we're going to laser cut is the types of things that a laser cutter can do. So a laser cutter can either can either cut or engrave. So if we want to cut something, we'll pick a color for cutting, and we'll set the stroke to be flat, and we'll choose the color, and we'll set the stroke style to be 1 pixel. So that would be like this rectangle here. So this outer rectangle is, so we want the stroke to be flat color. We've selected green as our cutting color, and we want the stroke style to be 1 pixel thick. Now this smaller rectangle, we don't actually want it to cut or anything, so I can actually make this blue, and that way it doesn't get cut, and I'll make the stroke style a little bit thicker so that we can actually see that that's the boundary we want to avoid. Now, another thing we need to do is to give ourselves some dimensions for where the outer rectangle is going to be. So for that, I'm just going to set it to 0.125 away from the left side, and 0.125 from the bottom. And we'll see that our blue rectangle got moved, so we'll go back and snap that back onto that corner, which you guys may not have been able to see. So now we've got this heart. So this heart, we actually want it to be a solid color red, and we want to outline the heart. So we'll set the stroke width to, let's just say 4 pixels. And since it already pulled up the rotation tab when we did the transforms, so if it doesn't show up, you can press Ctrl-Shift-M, it'll pull up the rotation tab. And we can rotate these 45 degrees to the left, and that looks a lot more like a heart that we're used to, right? And now we can position the heart roughly in the middle, and we'll start working on it. So we're gonna make the heart, we're gonna lock the aspect ratio of the heart so that it doesn't mess with it at all in terms of like what the shape looks like. And since the width of our acrylic is 3 inches, we want the heart to fit inside of it. So we'll set the heart's width to 2.875. And obviously now it's in like a weird place. So we take the X offset, right? So we're 0.125 is already getting us to the edge. And then we had 0.125 left to split between the sides of the rectangle. So that's 0.0625, so plus 0.0625, and it should just do the math, and now it's centered in our square. And now the height is up to us, right? So as long as it's, so 0.125 gets us to the bottom, 0.25 gets us to the top of the blue, and we'll make a little bit more space, so we'll do 0.0625 there. I missed a plus sign. And that put the heart right there. So if I deselect, we can see that there's a little bit of space. I actually don't like it so close to the bottom, so we'll just go ahead and make this 0.5, and that's a lot easier of a dimension anyways to work with. So now we have our text. So this text doesn't really look super great straight like that. So what I'm gonna do is make a new piece of text. So we'll grab the text tool, we'll click, and we'll type in happy, and then we'll press new line, Valentine Day, and we'll grab it. Well, it's Control A to grab it all, and we got to fix the font to be the font that we like. So for me, I picked Lucida Calligraphy, which is right here. And now we can bump the font size a little bit, maybe a little more. All right, now I want to rotate this at a bit of an angle, so I want to rotate it like 15 degrees to the left, and that kind of fits things a little nicer. And we'll put the day off to the side, and then we can grab our select tool and center this a little bit. So another thing I'm going to do is set the fill to be red, because we want this to be engraved. And then we'll go back to our select tool. We've locked the aspect ratio, so we'll just set this to be 2 inches wide. Now, if it's 2 inches wide and our rectangle is 3 inches wide and there's 1/8 of an inch of boundary, to center it, we would do 0.625. And that would center this block of text. But one thing is, we didn't center the text within the block. So if I do Control A and I'm in the text tool, I can hit center. And now that's centered the text. So now we go to the select tool and we come off, and that looks good. Now we're gonna put some accent hearts in the drawing. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna rotate it 45 degrees to the left. And now we've got a small heart. And now we've locked the aspect ratio, and I'm gonna make it maybe 1/2 inch wide. And we can move the heart somewhere. And I'm gonna make some duplicates of it. So it kind of stack those on top of each other, so I'll move them off to the side so that we can kind of see them. So this is 1/2 inch wide. So in order to center it, we would do 1.375, I believe. Yeah, that looks about centered. And for the height, we can do 0.75. And then this heart, maybe we take it and rotate it 15 degrees to the right, so we can change the direction of rotation. And we can just, we don't have to snap it anywhere, but we can, okay, it wants to snap. So if it's doing that, you'll just zoom in, and then the like snap, I guess, granularity goes down. And then we can take this heart and I'm gonna transform it. Whoa. Okay, I'm gonna hit, I'm not sure what happened here. All right, there we go. We had to fix the fill. I'm not sure what Inkscape did, but that's fine. So we're gonna take this and rotate it 15, maybe 30 degrees to the left. So I'll rotate it 15 twice. And I'm gonna make it a little smaller. And we'll stick this one. Okay, so it's snapping. So again, we'll zoom in. And so this one, actually I don't like it there. I'm gonna put it to the other side. There. And we'll drag it and sure. And then, so since I covered up the bottom of the Y, I might shift the text upwards. So we'll take the, whatever that number is, and I'm just gonna change it to 1.75. Okay, so this gives us our entire acrylic heart. So now if we want to talk about how to actually go about laser cutting it. So to prep it for laser cutting, I'm going to get rid of the blue rectangle we made, right? And then we'll take the rest and so we can do this. I'm going to see how much this affects things, but you guys can see the document properties. I'm going to make it inches, and then we'll change the width to be 4 inches wide and 5 inches tall, and we'll do that. And then, what was that? Okay, so now this fits a little better in our page. Right, so the next step is to put everything relative to each other, and then, yeah, and then we can do a file, save as. Where are we going to save it?
Wait, do you guys have any questions so far?
Yeah, I haven't seen any questions in the chat, so at least please let us know if you aren't able to follow along, or if you want me to go over any steps. So we'll just make a folder called Makery. And we'll call this Valentine's demo for me. All right, so I've got it saved. And if you're gonna do this at like one of the maker spaces on campus, you would then copy it to a flash drive and get someone there to help you out with cutting it. So, right, so as I just said, so we don't have any laser cutter connected to the laptop that we're streaming from, so I can't pull up the software for it. But basically, you just configure the colors and cutting for each color in your drawing. So we would set green to be a cut, and then so the piece of acrylic we've given you is 2 millimeters thick, so you should be able to cut it pretty easily. Every laser is different, so I can't really give you good speed and power variables for it, but the people there should be able to help you out with that. And if you have your own, then I'm going to assume that you know what powers to use, or that you can at least test and figure it out. So we would set green to be cut and red to be engrave, and then we would just line up our piece kind of in the laser cutter where we need it, and go ahead and just cut it out. Right, so the next part of this, so at the end of this, you should have, or you will have a, that looks a bit funky. Yeah, so at the end of that, you would have a piece of acrylic like this. So that looks a little, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, so this is what I drew yesterday, just prepping for this. So this is one piece. So the next piece is the circuit. So for the circuit, we've got an Arduino and a bunch of wires and LEDs. So I'm gonna go ahead and unplug everything so I can walk you through the process. So you should have three, if you got a parts kit for this workshop, you should have 3 LEDs, 2 longer wires, 3 short black wires, and 3 resistors. So the color code on these resistors should be, all right, there we go. So the color code, if you can see it, how does geometry work? Focus. All right, it's not focusing, so we're just gonna come closer. All right, so the color code is orange, orange, brown, and I'm not sure how well you can see that. But let's go ahead and build our circuit. So we've got, I'm going to zoom out just a little. Right, so we've got our breadboard, we've got our Arduino, and we've got all the parts, right? So step one would be to plug in your Arduino to some USB port, either on your computer or just into kind of like a wall adapter for your phone. Either one would work for this. And we're going to create a channel for our LEDs to go in. So we're going to put in our LEDs all the same way. So if we look at the LED, you should be able to tell that one of the legs is slightly longer than the other. So we're going to put them all such that the longer lead is closer to us. And then we're just going to plug it in to bridge the gap in the middle. So for this workshop, I'm going to try something different and kind of group the LEDs in the middle, since the majority of our text is, or like stuff that we want to color up, is in the middle. So we'll just space it out as best we can and get our LEDs in there. Next would be to put the resistors. So resistors are not directional. So we've got our first resistor here, and we're going to connect from this line labeled plus here to each of the columns for the LEDs. So we can see that I've got it right here at the same column as that LED. So we're gonna do that for the rest of them. All right. Now the other thing is, just because of the way we've designed our piece of 3D printed plastic, we need the resistor to be in the first hole and the LED to be in the last hole, because that's the amount of space we have that's going to be consumed by plastic. So we've got these plugged in. All right, and that should be them plugged in. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side, and we'll connect the last one here into the black line here. Yep, and you should be able to do that. And here's the last wire. All right, so this is the circuit aside from the Arduino. So now we need to hook this up to the power on the Arduino. So we'll plug in a wire here, and then we'll take the Arduino, we'll find the ground pin. So this is upside down, but well, why don't we just make it not upside down? All right. So we've got our Arduino here, and we can read it says ground right here. So we'll plug the black wire in the ground. All right, and then we'll take the green wire, or whatever other color you have, and we'll go into the 5-volt pin, and we'll plug that into the red here, and we'll see that our LEDs came on. So now the next piece of the puzzle is the 3D printed part. So last year we did one where we just did our own nameplates. So someone has theirs set up to say their name, and they put in their own LEDs and they lit it up that way. So for us, I'm going to zoom out a bit. All right, so we've got our 3D printed plastic, and we've got our, zoom out a little bit more. All right, yeah. So we've got our plastic, and it's got little tabs on the inside that will stop the acrylic from falling all the way through. And we've got our acrylic. So we'll just take our acrylic, and it should just slot right in there. If it doesn't, you might have to force your way through. And then you simply just drop it on top of the circuit. And you guys can see that it lights up the sign. So basically anywhere where there's engraving, it'll pick up the light and diffuse it so that you'll be able to see that, and then the light will pass through the rest of the acrylic. And if you look at it from the top, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but we can see that there's light leaking from the sides of the acrylic. So that's where all the rest of the light goes. So if you wanted to make this a little smaller, you can buy a piece of like circuit board, and you can put the resistors and wires and everything yourself. And that way you could fit it all into something that would just be a little board, and you can just kind of hot glue that to the bottom here. And that would give you all the pieces you need. So, right, so that basically is everything. And then also, one thing I missed is if you do decide to make it on your own on a piece of breadboard, or I guess circuit board, you can completely get rid of the Arduino. And I'm not going to recommend that you do this. I recommend you find a legitimate 5-volt power supply. But if you can't find one, you can take a USB cord and snip it and find out which wires are plus 5 volts and which ones are ground, and you can hook it up that way. Now, obviously, I'm not going to recommend you do that because that's like obviously not a super safe way to do it, but worst comes to worst, it's an option. So at this point, you guys kind of have all the pieces you need in order to make your own custom Valentine's Day gift for that special someone. Or, you know, if you don't want to make something for your Valentine, or, you know, unfortunately, maybe you don't have one. And I know it's really hard this time because it's like COVID, so you're not supposed to go out and meet anyone. So, you know, for this year, I guess if you don't have a Valentine, you can make your own sign for your desk. So maybe it's something that just says your name, or maybe if you have like, if you're part of some club or an organization and you want to rep their like kind of symbol, you can do that too. Yeah, so that kind of is all for the workshop. If you have any questions or you weren't able to follow along, please let us know. If you have any questions, or if you have any ideas or concerns. If you design something that requires like more LEDs, or if this does not seem bright enough for you, you can always grab more LEDs and plug them in, just so that you have a bit of a brighter system. And so if you have like more engraving, it might need more light. Another thing is, if you want to cut it out, so you can't cut like under. So like if I was to cut this out right here, it would cause the light to not flow upwards. So I'd actually lose all the lighting here. So it's important to keep your light, or keep the acrylic whole underneath anywhere where you want to show some light. So that concludes today's workshop. Yeah, so, okay, so another thing is you can make it a little bit more, I guess, pretty or aesthetic by having the lights kind of change. So one thing I did was I came up with a circuit that will fade the color between dim and bright. So I can go ahead and put that on screen for you now. It's just a basic circuit that will basically use a sine curve to kind of bring the light to brightness and then back down. So if we watch this for a second, we can see that the light fades in and out. So that's another option. Another option is to use an RGB LED. So instead of like one wire per LED to control, you can have 3, and then you can control the red, green, and blue channels, and then you can make this any color you want. Or you can make it fade between different colors too if you wanted to. So yeah, that should be it for the workshop. If anybody has any questions, please let us know. And then if not, I'm going to go ahead and talk through some of the other updates for this week.
Oh yeah, wait. By the way, if you rented a parts kit, then you can keep the acrylic and you can keep the 3D printed mount as well.
Yeah.
Everything else should be returned.
Exactly. So as Jack just said, you can keep the. Well, I'll just show you. So this you can keep, right? The acrylic and the printed. Everything else, you guys please bring it back to us. That way we can continue to provide parts for subsequent workshops. And this way is, or having the parts kit is kind of the best way we can keep you guys engaged and let you guys kind of participate as it would be in a normal semester. So in a normal semester, you guys would just be we'd put together the parts kits beforehand, and there'd be one at every kind of table, and you can work with someone and design your own stuff and follow along as you want. Right, so some of the kind of updates. So next week is our first project meeting. So that's Thursday, February 11th. For this meeting, we're going to be discussing you guys' ideas for projects and begin some of the basic planning for making the go-kart that we've been talking about. So that's one option, is the go-kart. We're definitely open to any ideas you guys have for other projects. So as part of our prep, we just asked that you guys kind of think of some other projects that you think would be cool for the club to do as a whole. And if you want to talk to us about it before the workshop, feel free to reach out to us on Discord, Slack, or by email, or any of the other socials that we have out. And yeah, we just want you guys to have some ideas for the workshop. That way, or sorry, not the workshop, for the project meeting, so that you guys can be involved and we can have some projects that everyone's interested in. So thank you everyone for coming. We'll see you all next week, hopefully on Thursday at between 6:30 and 7:30 by the Blue Jeans link, gtmakery.github.io/bluejeans. If you want to join our mailing list, we can go to gtmakery.github.io/mailing. And we've got all of our socials down here, so that's /Slack, Discord, Instagram, and Facebook. And that should be all the ways you guys can reach out to us. If you go to gtmakery.github.io, you should be able to see our entire site, which has links to our YouTube playlist, which should have recordings of all of the workshops from last semester and this semester. And we'll get this week's recording up as soon as we can. Yeah, so if you guys have any lingering questions or comments,